Programme Manager at Oxfordshire County Council. I work within the Children Education Families Directorate as part of a new permanent transformation team. And I'm working on the Family Hubs programme. And if I hand over to Jamie.
Hiya, I'm Jamie O'Leary. I'm a Children and Family Centre Manager in the central area, but I'm taking a special interest lead on trying to bring family hubs to Oxfordshire. So working closely with Shona and Elisa in trying to do that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Jamie, do you want to kickstart on the...
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much you guys all know about family hubs, but the government have launched this initiative of wanting to have family hubs in all areas. They're a place-based way of joining up services, so thinking about the community as a whole and how we come together under one umbrella of early help. The idea is that they're going to bring all the services together, working together from 0 to 19. And the idea is that it links in with the Start for Life agenda, it links in with the Families First agenda that's on its way, it links in with all the new reviews of children's social care and how best to kind of support families and children in the community. I've met with various local authorities that have done this already, and one of the ways that they've described it, which really resonated with me, was family hubs is the umbrella term. So basically the community is the family hub, and it's how we can all come together to work as one cohesive team to support children and families across the county. Family hubs, Shona, do you want to move on to the next slide? Family hubs is made up of kind of, which Shona will go on to in a little bit, but there's 3 elements of it. So there's the physical space, there's the virtual digital offer, and another one which I can't remember, but I know it is in a further slide. So these are the kind of things that the family hubs should be offering. Now, remember, it's an umbrella term for all of us. So a lot of this is already out there. So what we as Oxfordshire County Council want to do is kind of connect with you guys that are still on the ground, still doing all that really good work, and looking at how we can signpost families that we might be working with to you and getting to know what's going on in the community, but also looking for where there are still gaps in provision, and is that something that we can provide through our family help teams, our locality and community support teams, or whatever that might look like. So it's quite a comprehensive list. A lot of you who've been around for a lot of time might look at that and think, well, Jamie, that looks very much like what children's centres used to do, and you'd be absolutely right. We can't kind of shy away from that. What we're not wanting to do is come in and take over from you guys. We want to complement what you're already doing. You're all doing amazing jobs in the community. So how can we support what's going on already? Some of this stuff is being delivered within community hubs. Some of it's being delivered by various different organisations. So the idea is that we're going to try and see how we can have it all under this one umbrella. Do you want to move on to the next slide, Shona? So the background of this, like I said a little bit earlier, so it's a government initiative. 75 local authorities throughout the country were given funding. Oxfordshire wasn't one. So we are trying to bring family hubs together with no money and no funding. We've been to visit some of the local authorities that did have the funding, and we've been to visit some that haven't had the funding. It links into our early help and prevention partnership strategy. So this is a county-wide offer for all children and all families. So thinking of those right at the very early stages of just being born, what support might be needed, very universal in its offer. So part of what we're going to try and do, and part of why we're here to talk to you today, is give you a bit of a background on what family hubs are, where we're at as a local authority in terms of we're at our very starting point, basically. We've not got very far in terms of trying to work out where family hubs might be best based, what they might look like, but thinking about how we can all come together as one team to provide families with a holistic support approach. like I said, complementing what you guys have already got going on in the community and not trying to duplicate anything anywhere. I think that's it for me, Shauna.
Cool, thank you. So, looking at kind of where we are now with the Family Hubs program, so as Jamie said, we're kind of very much at the beginning of the stages of the process of kind of developing Family Hubs. What we do know is obviously that we want to have kind of a face-to-face element, and that would look at providing a range of different services and support to families. We also want to make sure that that's not too building based and looking at how we outreach, provide satellite work, and that's kind of how we work as a network across all the different organisations to look at kind of how do we make sure we're reaching out and making sure we're reaching all the different parts of the county. We know it's a large county, very diverse, looking at how we reach the rural areas. So thinking about how we can do that and utilising all the kind of the assets, spaces, etc., that we've got to deliver that. We're also looking at developing a virtual offer to provide that single place where resident families can contact and look at to see kind of what's available for them as a family, for the support that's available, and kind of that whole, as Jamie said, that whole holistic offer, kind of making sure that they have that single place that they can go to. Um, we have so the approach that we've kind of developed in relation to the program is following the kind of the outline approach that was developed by the National Centre for Family Hubs. We're obviously aware that that contract with Anna Freud with the DFE has come to an end and they're looking to appoint a new partner. But we managed to extract some information, had built a bit of a plan based on what the information before it kind of all disappeared from the website. So it's kind of unfortunate that all those toolkits and guidance is kind of not available at the moment. But we're very much following the National Centre for Family Hubs kind of approach about making sure we have a theory of change and that underpins everything that we do in relation to family hubs. Um, so at the moment, working on the programme, we've got so Delia Mann, so the Assistant Director of Early Health and Prevention. Delia is kind of the what I'd call the SRO, so the Senior Responsible Officer, kind of overseeing the whole of the programme. Eliza, who's the Service Manager for LCSS, Family Bridges and MASH, who couldn't be here today. She's kind of the business lead, so the person that we're talking to every day about family hubs. And then there's obviously Jamie as well, who's kind of bringing a lot of passion and also subject matter and business lead into the program as well. And then myself is the transformation program manager, so I'm kind of helping to do a lot of the stuff in the background, keeping things on track, looking at kind of the opportunities, helping to manage risks, etc. So what is really good is about we have got this team working on this project together, and we're kind of as we've now got ourselves kind of sorted, looking at okay, what's the next step? How do we bring partners into this? So in line with kind of the National Centre for Family Hubs best practice guidelines, said the first step is kind of undertaking a needs assessment. So we've started to take oh, sorry, that's underway at the moment. And that's about us understanding very much at the moment from the perspective of kind of the understanding the demand and need that's going through kind of the children's social care and front door and looking at how that kind of varies across the county, what some of the demographics of those families are. And that's helped us just to understand kind of what does that need look like. Also trying to look at the kind of the population. We know that the county is changing quite a lot. Areas of the county have got significant kind of development, population growth. So thinking about how we build that into kind of thinking about what that need looks like now, but also in the future. The next step we've got as well is looking at, as we said, we are at that early stage and we want to bring partners in now. So looking at kind of how we do that. We have got planned a workshop on the 26th of June at 1:30 at the Westgate collaboration space. And the aim of that event is basically to kind of start planning our theory of change. So it's looking at the outcomes that we want to achieve through family hubs. So what does that good look like? If we got everything right, what does that look like for families, for organisations, for services, for the county as a whole? And also to kind of look at what do we know about the need? What do we know that we will, who are the people that we need to be working with, and what does that need look like? And as just to say as well, obviously that workshop we've got planned for the end of June. We have had to restrict numbers because of space to kind of 50 people, and we're trying to get representation across VCSE from health, so looking at all aspects of health, education, social care. So it's a lot of people we're trying to kind of would need to be involved, but we're having to restrict that on space to 50 people. But what we are saying though, this is just the beginning. We want to, as we said, Jamie said, family hubs are all about working in partnership and lots of different organisations coming together. So we're looking at all the different ways that we can work with partners going forward. So we want to hold further partnership events where we hold kind of looking at maybe whether we do that locality around a specific need or a specific demographic group, holding those in the future. We want to look at developing a newsletter so everybody can be kept up to date about what's going on. Inviting if there's people that are particularly interested and would have the time to maybe think about joining some of our project groups. We also the next big step that we're working on is developing about how we kind of approach and engage with our families to make sure that they're at the core of developing this offer and that they're shaping that from the beginning. So we're just exploring how we do that at the moment, but very much see that something that we can work with partners to kind of develop and evolve as we go through this program. And I think that's kind of our kind of summary of where we are on Family Hubs. If I stop sharing. So yeah, I just wondered if people kind of had any questions, thoughts. It'd be good to kind of hear people's feedback.
I'm sure there will be lots of questions and thoughts. You can raise your hand the old-fashioned way or electronically, or put a question in the chat. Anything you'd like to ask Shona and Jamie? Who wants to kick off? Sue was very quick off the mark.
I just wondered sort of where the voluntary groups are going to fit in with this that are sort of running. Are they going to be involved in that first visioning workshop in June, or how do you see them fitting in?
So for us, kind of VCSE groups, community groups are absolutely at the core of Family Hubs and want to make sure that the kind of that offer, as Jamie said, like the Family Hub offer is lots of different partners and organisations coming together to offer that. So absolutely as part of that. The main issue we've got is kind of how do you get everybody, we can't get everybody together all at the same time. So kind of looking at how we provide multiple different opportunities. I was hoping today that we could make sure that we had representatives from this network. I was thinking maybe kind of 5 or 6 reps from this group that we could invite to the visioning workshop to be part of that. But like we said, that's just the first step. We want to look at many different opportunities and providing different ways. Some people might want to be more engaged, some people might want to just keep up to date in the background. So it's making sure, and I'm happy to have feedback on how we can do that. But yeah, providing many different avenues of how we best engage and kind of keep people on board based on everyone's capacity and what they would like, basically. Yeah.
Which voluntary sector organisations have you already got? I imagine Home Start and People. Who else? Because you've got a limited number, haven't you, of spaces?
Yeah, so far, so what we've done is kind of approach those that are already sitting on the early years and the early help and prevention board. So
PIP as well.
yeah, so PIP have been invited, Response, Active Oxfordshire, then People and yeah, Home Start Oxford.
Okay. And how many more spaces have you got if people were interested in taking
So
one?
I think we've definitely got 5 or 6, and it's difficult at the moment because I sent the invites out last week and I've had a few people say tentative or so. I might have more opportunities like as we get closer to the date, but I know it's not great for everybody to kind of have that. But yeah, we definitely could offer 5 or 6 now. I never know in a week's time or kind of the week before we might have more space. But yeah, it's really difficult because we want to have as many people there, but also when you think we want to make sure we've got representation from across the different health services, so thinking the 0 to 19 health visitors, trying to reach out and see if we can get kind of GPs involved, kind of hospital services, Oxford Health, etc. So, and then I think we want to get SEND education. So, yeah, our list is very long at the but that's why, like, also, like I said, we're really happy to come to this group on a regular basis if that would be helpful.
Well, or we could host a special one if you've got, feedback from your thing on the 26th of June. We could get feedback on the feedback or whatever it is you're wanting. We could host that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like, and that's for me is we want to work with you guys, so it's what's useful
Yeah.
and how that can work
Who
best
is
for you.
asking if we can share your slides? Are you happy for me to share your slides afterwards?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Any next question or anyone wanting to go to this event? Amy has her hand up.
I've got lots of questions, but I'll just stick to a couple. Shona, I'm thinking about the model of the hubs, and I really like the idea of the virtual offer and also that physical presence. Do you have any idea on how many kind of buildings you would hope to go? I can see Jamie's shaking her head, not at the moment. And then it would be really good just to kind of think about that in terms of those voluntary groups that moved from the children's centre model to now being voluntary delivery. And then my other question was in terms of the services that were on that lovely diagram. Have you had any thoughts around how that looks in terms of universal versus more, universal and preventative provision versus kind of more targeted provision? Because I know there's been an ongoing dialogue within the county of, the universal services that we're able to offer and everything feeling like it's got to go more towards that kind of targeted side. But with the diagram you've got, you thinking in terms of parenting, for example, would that be universal parenting for all families, or are you still going to be thinking about more of a targeted model?
So I'll pick this one up, Shona. So I'm currently working on the parenting part of the parenting strategy for Oxfordshire as alongside this at the minute. So thinking about the programs that we currently offer and thinking about how we can maybe work more closely with the community sector to be able to offer them at an earlier stage with community partners. We're looking at training people up if anyone is interested in parents as partners. So working with families where communication and co-parenting is a bit of a challenge. We're putting on the training to train community partners up so they can deliver that. I'll just put a plug out there for that because we would like to get more people involved. So we are thinking about how we can offer this parenting on a wider scale rather than the targeted way that it's been done recently. The beauty about the digital offer is that I'm hoping we can have some of the parenting resources online that people can just tap into as and when they need them as well. So almost like mini workshops that are delivered that they can just go on and work through at their own pace. So there are lots of things that we're trying to think about in terms of parenting and how we make that more universal. What we know from group work is that if you've got a more balanced group of people from universal services as well as targeted and those that have been told they have to go there, you get a better outcome at the end. So it is something that we are definitely moving towards and trying to think about how we can do that in the future. And that will be about how we can train up more people in the community to co-deliver with us potentially, or they deliver and we just do the higher end stuff. So at the moment, I'm looking at like a graduated pathway of parenting, if that makes sense. And that's my windscreen. I don't know why I could talk with my hands. So thinking about those that kind of fit at that really early stages, that universal stages, how can we get people on the ground delivering them at the earliest stage so they don't need to go to be put on a TAF so that they can access some parenting support and things. So there's lots of things that we are trying to do in terms of that. Remind me what your other question was, because I got
it was thinking about no, that's fine. It was kind of paying attention to really like the idea of that the virtual offering, but how will that balance with those physical centres and families being able to access those in their community?
So I think what's really important to kind of think about is that the family hubs are not going to take away from what you're already doing. So the digital offer will have links, hopefully, to all your services as well. So if a family goes on and says, this is where I live, where is my nearest help for X, Y, and Z, it should be able to, she hopes, be able to pinpoint what service is near them. We're not sure about how many hubs we're going to have in terms of physical hubs. And it might be that the main hubs might be, for example, the Red Kite Centre, or it might be that it's a community provision that's the main family hub, if that makes sense. So they're all things that we do need to kind of work out within that visioning workshop that's coming up.
Fantastic. I'll pass you over to Leslie from OPF and see she's got a question.
Yes, there's a couple of questions in the chat. Leslie, do you want to speak as well?
Not really. Sorry, I'm in my kitchen.
Hey,
Just,
Leslie.
yeah, it's nice to know that Jamie's working on this. OPF for several years have been trying to talk to the county about parenting strategy and things. I don't know whether you've ever been copied into any of our conversations.
No, but I'll happily pick that up with you outside of here, Leslie, if you want.
Right, good. Thank you. We've got a couple of documents you might like to read.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
Thank you. We'll know who to talk to next.
Yes, you've got a lot of experienced parenting practitioners here,
Yeah.
as well as Red Kite and Berrin Centre and yeah, people with space. Are there more questions from other people?
Yes, please.
Prue?
I just wanted to ask, with the plan to have this initial meeting, and then because of limits of size, it will then go out. My concern is, I've got two parts to it. My concern is then, does that then mean that future discussions are based on what do you think we've done so far, rather than it being an extension of that very first meeting? And the other thing I'm concerned about was the way it was expressed, and perhaps I've misunderstood it, is that we hope to have these different aspects and organisations involved. Whereas for me, as a parent and involved in the community, our theory of change said that these people must be involved if it's going to be effective. All sections have to be involved, not just that express a hope that they might be willing. Because at the moment, the experience for many families is that you move from one silo to another. That's education, that's health, that's that. And it's how do we actually get them working collaboratively from grassroots levels up. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, if I was on to the second question, yeah, probably it was probably like the language that I used. And obviously very much committed to making sure that we hear from kind of, I'd love to say all families, but yeah, and looking at making sure, and that's for me is about kind of understanding kind of who the groups that we are going to have to find ways to kind of use different engagement techniques, different ways to reach out. I don't like that expression, but you know, we're going to have to utilize many different tools, techniques, partnerships, etc., to make sure that we are hearing from as many possible voices as because we know that that's like we could open up the best hub in the world, but if we haven't involved people in it, no one will walk through that door. So we have to make sure that we are engaging with as many people throughout, and that's also like why it's important for us to be working with partners. There's only so much that us as a council will be able to achieve, and also that knowledge about kind of particularly as the county is changing so much, actually are there kind of smaller demographic groups of families that actually might not be kind of engaging with the council services, but that organisations working in the community that they're engaging with. And so that's how we can reach those families. So it's yeah, utilising as many.
Thank
And
you.
it's something that's ongoing as well, isn't it? Like once this, it won't be completed once we've got family hubs developed. They will have to look at how we continue that engagement, and that voice of the family is shaping it as those offers develop and evolve, and as the world changes around us as well. So
Thanks very much.
I noticed as well on the kind of the opportunity in relation to the workshop. I think that's the workshop we're aiming for it to be is quite high level, so focusing kind of on those kind of the outcomes and the need, but want to make sure that we are replaying that and going back to different events. And that's what I mentioned is about like looking at other follow-up workshops, but looking at how we can make them ongoing, if that makes sense. So it's not like we have this one and then a follow-up, but actually how do we have some kind of regular basis that provides us that opportunity to keep coming back, to keep talking, replaying, refining. And I don't what we haven't got an idea yet about like what that end product looks like. We want to work with partners and everybody to do that as equal. So yeah, hopefully it's just yeah, we could it's making sure we utilize your time in the best possible way as well.
So Sue has her hand up, and there's a question about how other local authorities have funded family hubs in the chat. And I think there's a new thing in the chat I haven't yet seen from the Berrin Centre as well. Sue, do you want to? You're muted.
I just wondered with this visioning workshop whether there was some scope for gathering some sort of ideas from people sort of on the ground and from families on the ground to feed into that before it, rather than having the visioning and then going out. Whether, I don't know if there's the scope for some of us who are working with families on the ground in our local areas now to gather some information that we could feed into that.
That's something I could take away and have a think about. Just think, yeah, well, how that'd be possible. And I guess that's part of me is like looking at if we could get reps from kind of this group, because obviously hoping there's continuous conversation that some of that can feed through to the visioning workshop. But yeah, I can take away and look at kind of what the scope would be to explore doing.
Even if it's just a series of questions that maybe sort of local on the ground organisations had to feed into that 26th event. You know, we could put our heads together and talk to our families and actually at least feed in at that early stage then.
Yeah. So I've just thinking off the top of my head whether we could come up with a quick survey that we share, which could be shared with the network here. Let me have a think about that, and then thank you.
And Laura from the Barron Centre has popped a comment in the chat. Laura, do you want to speak to it as well?
Yeah, just I mean, not much to elaborate on really on what's in the chat, but just to say that some families will feel really enthusiastic and excited about the prospect, but others might be worried that it might mean that some of their existing supports and services might close because they're being swapped for something new from the county council. So it's just important that you're kind of in your messaging to families that's being really clearly stated, that this is a both and rather than an either or, to just allay that anxiety straight away.
And shall I pick up the question about funding? So, like I said, 75 local authorities were given funding, and it was quite a substantial amount of funding for them to bring family hubs together. Other local authorities that haven't had that funding are trying to fund it through existing pots of money within the council. So I guess that's why it's really important that we come at this as a community and as a wider community partnership, because we don't have an infinite pot of money, and you guys are already delivering some of that work, and we just want to support as best we can and how we can look for gaps in the offer. So it's really interesting to think about. I know some of the local authorities where they didn't have funding, they did still have an existing network of local authority children's centres, which they've just rebranded as family hubs. So we're coming at it from a slightly different angle in Oxfordshire in terms of the funding aspect. And that's all I can really say in terms of funding. We're going to try and do it within the money that we've already got within the local authority for early help services. Is there anything more, Shona, that you know about?
No, I think, nothing to add.
So there's a question in the chat from Rachel in Kidlington. It's Kidlington, isn't it? Is that right? Do you want to speak to it, or should I just read it out? Oh, there you can.
Yeah, no, I'm just sorry, I joined a little bit late. I was trying to get my laptop working. So I'm just trying to get my head around everything, and this sounds huge to me, which is, it all sounds amazing. So am I right in thinking that the Family Hub is going to be virtual, so there's not going to be say like a building for it? But what it will use is our organisations and our setups to kind of have that face-to-face element.
So family hubs is an umbrella term for the community offer of early help, whether that's local authority or you guys. There's three elements to that, which Shona talked about before, which is the face-to-face element, the digital offer, and the support services that are out there that could be met through the network. So there will be some physical family hubs, whether they are local authority buildings or whether we partner with community services to say, actually, we need one in this area. Can we support you to become a family hub. We're not 100% sure yet. We need to be led by the data and kind of think about where the biggest needs are. There won't be any funding available that I'm aware of, that we know of yet, to feed back in. But what we will be looking at is how we can support in terms of, does some of our staff come and co-deliver things in the grassroots areas so that you can get, say, the parenting programs up and running if you're struggling for staff and that sort of thing. So it wouldn't necessarily be money, but it might be that we can offer staff support or things like that. Really.
Obviously, because organisations like mine, Kid Links, Red Kite Centre, all those, like OBS, the raw kind of charitable projects. And year on year, we're struggling to bring money in to keep us afloat, basically. So I just kind of I'm trying to visualise how it all fits together and how we would be supported to keep our projects going, to then keep the family hub going.
What would be wonderful is if the government decided that actually, yes, family hubs are urgently needed, and they decided to fund all local authorities to put them in place. But we're not at that stage yet, although those talks are still going on. So please do lobby your MPs. I didn't say that.
Well, I know ours personally, so we'll try that. Thank you.
Were there any questions from other people who haven't said anything yet? Flows or Watlington and Chalgrove we've got, or Henry. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I would just jump in to say thank you for all the hard work that's going on. I imagine it's very difficult to try and pull all this together, particularly as it wasn't funded. So thank you for presenting everything so that we kind of get an understanding of what's going on. And it was just to offer that hopefully if there are spaces, I'm sure somebody from Henry would like to come along to that workshop, given that although we're based in Oxfordshire, we work nationally. So obviously we work with lots of areas that do have hubs. So there's a little bit of how it works in other areas that we could perhaps feed into that conversation, which may be helpful. So it was just to kind of say that I'm sure that if there are spaces, we'd like to join in with that. And yeah, thank you very much.